Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm already sharing my screen. Is that right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm gonna get started. My name is Nohely Guzman. I'm a graduate student at the University of Texas at Austin. I'm in the Latin American Studies program right now, but I'm hoping to be a geographer at some point in my life. I'm super honored to be here. I've been learning so much from all these presentations, and I really hope I can offer some insight as well. The work I will present here is titled Esta carretera nos atraviesa, Indigenous Girls' Body Territory Mapping and the Emergence of Chinese Capital in the Bolivian Amazon. In it, I will explore how Indigenous girls from the community of Santana de Muceruna experience, embody, and represent the construction of a highway by a Chinese company in their territory. By focusing on three maps made by these girls whose ages range between 6 and 12 years old, I examine and set in motion the concept of body territory proposed by indigenous Guatemalan theorist Lorena Cabnal. The analysis I will present here is also part of what is my master's thesis. But I find important before jumping into the body maps themselves to mention that in Latin America, Chinese finance has been experiencing a very accelerated expansion. Chinese capital in Bolivia in particular goes from mining activities to technology and military equipment. And among these infrastructure projects such as highways, bridges, and mega dams located on indigenous lands or affluent areas are particularly remarkable. China's emergent presence has been embraced by governments in power under the premise of cooperating towards the integration of the region, of the Amazon, and of the country into broader economic dynamics. But I think these integration plans and projects are something that I will come back to later in the presentation. What do the integration plans of the Amazon mean for its people? I asked myself, and feminist geographer Doreen Massey's words were an important guide to outline an answer. From above, integrating the community, the Amazon, and ultimately the country to other areas functional to the permanent opening of capitalist frontiers looks like this. This is a map of the region where you can see in green and orange indigenous territories that are home to more than 36 communities of Mojeño Trinitario, Yuracares, Chimanes, and Movimas indigenous peoples. However, integration, as indigenous women have shown me during my previous encounters in the field, could not be understood when rendered timeless, placeless, and disembodied. Integrating, as Massey reminds us, is in itself a relational and fixed, multiple, and ever-changing process of spatial interconnectedness. I wonder then, what would happen if we decenter the dominant narratives about this global capitalist process to rather listen to those who inhabit the quotidian and taken for granted spaces? Maya Shinkan, Lorena Cabnal, as much as Aymara Adriana Guzman and Seneca theorist Mishuana Goeman, reminds us that capitalist processes are never race, gender, age, or ethnic neutral. Stemming from this, Lorena Cabnal builds the theory of body territory as a single word and as a unity. In her words, the historical and oppressive violence exists for both my first body territory as well as for my historical territory, the land. The body territory as a theoretical framework with an incredible methodological fertility reminded me of Goeman's words that assert that indigenous women hold a special embodiment of knowledge, often erased from the objective narratives that organize the space. Understanding that the body territory intimately ties the physicality of the land, the tangible marks of the colonial, capitalist, patriarchal rhetoric and practice of empires, and the most sensitive fibers of the bodies, I propose the indigenous women and girls to map. But I didn't want us to make another conventional map about the resources that were taken up by the company, like the one I showed on a previous slide, for example, but rather to map their emotions and sensations with and about the Chinese company, its workers, and the construction of the highway in the territory. After much deliberation, we arrived to a conclusion similar to that of Goeman in her dialogue with Dennis Cosgrove. We wanted to map the remembered, the imagined, and the contemplated. Indigenous women like Lolita Chavez and Berta Cáceres, just to pick two specific Latin American indigenous women that are leaders, have been telling us this for years when they affirm that many wars are being fought in their bodies. And here are three of the maps drawn by 15 indigenous girls back in 2019 in the Santana de Muceruna community. Although I will not have time to expand on the methods of this body mapping experience at this time, I would like to share some of the notes on the last part of the workshop, in which all the women and girls hung their maps on the wall and collectively read them. Their narrations pointed to several directions with commonalities and divergences that I have organized in these 3 groups. On one hand, we have the traces of hope and dreams. On the other, we have the geographies of fear. And the third one would be violence, damage, and pain. When I looked specifically at this first part, I realized that the girls had highlighted at least 3 areas: the family and home, common spaces such as the school, the church, the cabildo, and the field, and lastly, nature. All the hearts that you are seeing are the places in these maps, and that are circled in blue, are the places where the girls feel joy, love, and safety towards their families, neighbors, forest, and the animals around them. They have pointed out that their throats let them know when they are happy, that they feel joy in their legs when they can run and play soccer, in their hands when they can touch and do stuff, and in the head and ears with their dreams, hopes, ideas, and songs. With my family, I feel safe. Reads one of the maps with a drowned house in the heart. United, kind, and respectful reads another map, and in a different one, a girl located in the forehead, the inscription, "My dream is to be a teacher." Insisting on the accountings of the emotions of the bodies in and as a space, these maps highlight the agency with which the girls subvert the perimeters and normative geographies set by those in power. Among the many routes marked by the girls on their maps, those that mark fear portray entangled experiences with nature, the community, home, the campsite, and the highway itself. We can read the word miedo, fear, in several parts of the body. They have signaled that they feel fear in their hands, near the legs, and at the level of the stomach and the hips. "I'm afraid to stay home alone," reads one of the maps. In another one, they inscribe the fear of drowning in the river. And in a different map, the girls drew a girl standing at one end of the highway. Here we can see some of those. I'm pointing them out. Similarly, between the stomach and the genitals, the girls located the road and the tracks on their body map here. It's striking to observe that the warning note that accompanies this central graphic. By writing peligro or danger on it, the girls have again described this as a site of fear and pain. Among other things, the workers' shouts, their intimidating loud laughter and whistling, the objectualizing gestures, sexual jokes, and other forms of sexual harassment stood out. Among other sites that represent the fear are the cantina, where usually the workers meet to drink alcohol during the weekend nights. And I think it's important to mention that for Santana's indigenous women and girls, the fear triggered by the company's presence is lived as predatory both in the body and in the territory. This is the last section, and I would like to mention that through the body mapping process as a space, the girls named collectively and out loud their experiences of violence and pain in ways they do not usually do either with friends, at school, or at home. As a result, the emotional geographers here narrate how and where the indigenous girls live their corporeal specialty when it becomes painful. The experiences of pain, damage, and violence will be evidenced through these maps, through the presence of band-aids in the maps. We can see that the girls put band-aids in their hands, arms, hearts or chests, genitals, faces, animals, and nature. These are the parts where the girls have felt different kinds of pain. Negative thoughts and unpleasant memories or experiences, their performance in school, daily difficulties or chores are the primary reasons pointed by them when talking about and identifying some of these pains. They feel the pain and also the shame in their cheeks, for example, the same cheeks where sometimes their parents would be if they would behave disrespectfully. In one map reads, "There are things to heal at home." Yes, and in this section, for example, the girls decentralize the problems related to the construction of the highway and the Chinese company to rather look at the intimacy of their life at home with violence. This is a way in which the girls invite us to settle in the lived experiences of contradiction and ambiguity. I want to now turn to the other sites in which the girls have located their band-aids, nature. If we observe carefully, all the maps center the river as a site in pain. In one map, the word sanar, to heal, is written on the river. Here we can see some of them, and here is where it says sanar. Yes, Santana's river being depicted by its strength and beauty, in addition to connecting the families of the community, is a site identified as wounded by the pollution caused primarily by the company. Here we can see that connection that I'm referring to. This was signaled as an important element for the death of animals that live in and drink that water. The girls and their families, furthermore, are depicted in the river with their canoes because it is an important way of transport and for fishing. We can see that over here too. Another map reads, don't cut trees. They have signaled here that the construction of the highway has cut many trees and that they would like the trees to be treated with amability and respect, which is inscribed here and in another map, if I'm not wrong. The damage made to the trees, the girls pointed out, are also related to the death of animals around the highway. Signaling that the workers do not take care of the animals, they narrate the times they have seen the company's trucks not stopping when they see snakes, families of capybaras, dogs, turtles, foxes, and other animals that transited freely before the company's arrival. These deaths, also visible in the wish and intention of healing the river, whose pollution is killing the fish and driving animals away, extend over the ducks, chickens, pigs, and cows depicted in the map. Here we can see some of those animals. The presence of nature-related band-aids expresses the amalgamated bodily and sensory affective processes that are exceptional examples of the body territory concept. Finally, my final thoughts on these are that I think, well, these maps have shown us that how and where happiness, fear, hope, and violence are felt is directly constitutive of the space in which these are lived. I think that the girls have destabilized the dominant notions and discourses that intend to depict them as either selfless fighters and victims or the uncritical beneficiaries of the company's presence. I also think that the embodied dimension that these drawings encompass, exceeding the binaries of outside and inside, material and subjective, and emotional and relational, allows us to visualize Cabnal's notion of the body territory with a special intimate clarity. Here, I think it's important to remember what Nightingale affirms when she states that environments inscribe profound implications for social difference, space, and ecologies that are rarely neutral. I think that part of the learning experience with this project has been seeing how the potential and the clarity that the girls have in expressing what is relevant to them in their own terms, in their own scales, right? Without needing to behave as adults. And I think to finish this presentation, I would like to echo Mishona Goeman's incisive proposal when she mentions, or when she states, mark their words because in them lies the future. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few minutes for questions again before we move on to the next participant. So raise your hand or put a question in the chat. Sarah, I guess Sarah has a question there in the chat.